Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Today's video, I'm going to harvest the carrots and then take you along for how I preserve them, so we'll pressure can them a little later. So, let's get started. Alright, so I got two different varieties of carrots here. I got the Danvers and then the Imperator, I think they're called. I'm not going to harvest all of them today. I think I want to keep some in just in case we want to eat some later or use them fresh. So I think I'll just start with the Imperator side. I got 2 rows of each kind, and I did space these out how you should. I know if you've watched my last year's videos and stuff, I said that I usually just sprinkle all the seeds out. I don't take the time to thin them, and I just let them do their own thing. But this year, I actually took the time to space them out properly, thin them down to 1 plant per hole. So I expect the harvest to be a lot better than the way I used to do them. So anyway, we'll get started and see what we get. Alright, so that's what we harvested for the Imperator carrots. And now we'll get them all cleaned up, and I'll get back to you when it's time to can them. See you in a bit. Alright everyone, we're back in the kitchen, and I am about ready to can up the carrots we harvested earlier, which was a very nice harvest in my opinion. A lot better than last year's. But anyway, I'm going to show you what you need, or what I use to can up and preserve the carrots for storage anyway, and we like to can them. So you will need a pressure canner, and then I just have a little pot here to do the boiling water, and then also I just have obviously the jars, and then my little tool here to get the air bubbles out, little funnel. Salt is optional. You do not have to add salt, but if you do, you want the canning salt, not just your regular iodized salt. Obviously the lids and bands, and then of course the carrots. Alright, so the first thing I do is I turn the pot of water on. Want to get that to a boil. That's what you're going to fill the jars with. I will also start getting my water in the pressure canner warm. I do not want this boiling. I just want to get it warm. And, follow your directions on your pressure canner. I have to put 3 quarts of water in mine. And then I do add a little bit of vinegar. That helps with not getting white on your lids and stuff like that. So I will turn that on, and then I also have the oven on at like 200 degrees, and I will put my jars in the oven just to get them warm. You want the jars warm when you pack them, when you're pouring boiling water in there. You don't want boiling water going into a cold jar just in case. You don't want it to crack, basically. So that's why I warm up the jars. So we'll get going with all that. So I did wash those jars really good, and now we'll just come back to you when this water is boiling and it's time to pack the jars. Alright, we're back. We got the water that we're going to be adding into the jars boiling, and now it's just the packing the jars and all that stuff. So I'll show you how I do that, the steps you got to take, and I just take out a couple jars at a time from the oven. Like I said, the jars are in the oven just so you're not pouring boiling water into a cold jar, to prevent them from cracking mainly. And then also the water in the pressure canner is heating up as well. And it is very important to use pressure canner when you're doing carrots, as carrots basically have no acidity at all, so you need to pressure can them. You can't just water bath can them. unless you were going to pickle them. Then of course you're adding vinegar, which brings the acidity down, and you can do that. So I will adjust the camera here so you can see how I pack the jars. I'm kind of self-filming right now, so just bear with me. But let's get started. Alright, my head's going to be cut off for this part, but that's fine. I just want to show you the process here. So I'll take my funnel. I'll just start adding carrots in there. Kind of give them a little shake halfway through. And for carrots, you want to leave a inch head space. So that's basically just right where the jar starts to bend right there, just below the band line. And I'll kind of just pack them down in there. And then the salt, like I said earlier, the salt is purely just for taste, and you can go up to a half a teaspoon in a pint jar. I just do 1/4. Now that, like I said, the salt is just for taste, has nothing to do with the preservation of the carrots or spoilage or anything. It's just a taste thing. And I'll pour the liquid, also leaving that 1-inch headspace. And then it's important to kind of get something, whether you use the butter knife or I got this handy little tool here to kind of work around the outside of the jar. Get any air bubbles out you can. And then I will just repack them down. That looks like the 1-inch headspace you need. Another important step is make sure you wipe the rim of the jar. You can add vinegar to the paper towel if you want, but since I'm using just water, I usually don't. Lid, band, just finger tight, and then into the pressure canner it will go. We'll do one more, and then I'll finish filling up the rest off camera here. I don't want to bore you with showing too much of it. You get the idea. Now, I'm not a big, huge cooked carrot fan. This is mainly for when we do soups or stews. It's a nice way to use the carrots because you don't have to let them cook in there all day long to get mushy. You just have to put them in for a good 45 minutes or something and they're perfect. Now after you're done getting all the air bubbles out, if the water level drops, you just add a little more water to maintain that 1-inch headspace there. And that one looks good. Again, wipe, lid, band, finger tight. Now the lids, you used to have to get the lids warm. They don't recommend that anymore, or you don't have to before you put them on the jars, so you can just use them straight out of the box. But anyway, we'll get back to you when I'm done filling the jars and show you the next step. See you in a bit. Alright, so I got 10 pint jars of carrots here, and as you can see, I got the older, pressure gauge style canner. So the next step is just putting the lid on, closing it, sorry, my dog there, closing it till it locks in position, and then we're going to let this air vent here start steaming, and once this starts to get a steady steam, we will set the timer for 10 minutes because you want to let this vent a steady steam for a good 10 minutes before we put the weight on there. So we'll see you back when that happens. Alright, we're down to about a minute left of this venting. As you can see, maybe you can see from the camera, that it is steaming pretty good out of there. And I did forget to mention, after I put the lid on, you want to turn the heat all the way up to high, just so it builds up faster and gets hotter in there. And also, I know there's a lot of people that are afraid to use this style canner. There are now new electric canners that do all the same thing, that might make it a little easier for you if you don't want to deal with this process, or if you're afraid of the lid blowing off, which these things have a safety feature here that will pop off if it gets too high. And then also this weight that I'm about to put on here will also start to rattle really loud if the pressure gets too dangerous or high in there. So it does have a lot of safety features on it that I'm not nervous or afraid of pressure canning in it. But anyway, we're a few seconds away from it venting for 10 minutes, and there's the timer. So now we just put the weight on there, and then we just wait for the pressure gauge to get up to 11 pounds. And once it gets 11 pounds, I will set the timer for carrots. Pint jars, you have to pressure can at 11 pounds for 25 minutes. So we will see you when it's at about 11 pounds pressure. So alright, we're back. The canner is almost at 11 pounds. Now if you use this style canner and you've canned before, you know that you kind of have to get acclimated to your stove a little bit, or your range. I use an electric one. I do prefer a gas one. I'm sure it's probably a little easier to regulate, but anyway, once I get to around 10 pounds, maybe a little bit more, I will turn my oven down to where I think I kind of have it dialed in. And then once it hits 11 pounds, I will again set the timer for 25 minutes. Hit start, and then I will just sit and watch the pressure, look at it every few minutes in case if I need to adjust the heat up and down on the range here. But like I said, once you've done this enough, you kind of know how it reacts to your temp setting on your range there. So we will see you back in about 25 minutes here. Alright, the 25 minutes is almost up. There's the timer. Now we're just going to turn the timer off, turn the range off, and we are going to gently lift and carry the canner over to my island. You want to take the canner off the heat source. Alright, so now we have the canner off, and what we're going to do now is we're going to wait till that little pressure release valve in the back there drops down, and then also wait for that pressure gauge to get down to 0. So once that little pressure valve in the back drops and the gauge reads 0, then we can take the weight off. It's important not to take that weight off right now, as you can really mess up the jars. They might crack. So we'll see you back in, I don't know, it sometimes takes 25-30 minutes for all the pressure to release out of this. So we'll see you back then. Alright, vent. The pressure valve in the back has dropped. Gauge is reading 0. So now we can take this off, the weight, and now we have to let it vent for 10 minutes before we can open up and take out the jars. See you in 10 minutes. Alright, 10 minutes is up. Now we get to remove it. Always open it away from you so you don't steam yourself. And we get to take the jars out. favorite part, always trying to get this divider out. Very hot. So a whole day of from harvest to canning in one video. Then we'll let these jars sit here for a good 24 hours before we label them. Well, you don't have to label them, just put the dates on there. So that's it. 11 jars. I miscounted first time. I guess it's 11 jars, and then I will take you along on the next harvest of carrots, but I won't show you how to can them again. Them ones we're just gonna can whole. So that being said, thanks for watching. Hopefully you learned something about canning, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.